We have a massive red alert for Week 10 fantasy football, guys. The number one tight end, by consensus, is not playing this week. So what do we do at the tight end position, guys? Well, I gotta be honest with you, there's been lots of tight end studs happening on a weekly basis over the past several weeks. It's actually really shaken up the tight end rankings for me personally. So we gotta go through Week 10 fantasy football and see the top 12 tight end rankings, and we will be doing that exactly right here in this video today. And I am filming this video at 1 a.m. on Thursday night, so please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to this channel to show your support. It is greatly appreciated, you guys. And once I hit 7,500 subscribers, I will be giving away lots of FFN hats, so go down there, let's make it happen as soon as possible. So let's go ahead, dive through these rankings right now. So number one, not much of a, change up right here with Mark Andrews at number one, taking on the Cleveland Browns this week. Mark Andrews has been the clear number two tight end. No question about it. And I'm talking about season long. Obviously, we've got a guy right behind him and right after him that has really been great of late. Mark Andrews has consistently done it throughout the season. And he really hasn't had many bad weeks, and Baltimore's offense is running so efficiently right now. Now, I have said in previous videos this week, I do expect Mark Andrews and the Baltimore Ravens to have a tougher week against a divisional opponent that has a very great defense. They know their tendencies more. They know what to expect more than teams from the NFC do, like the Baltimore Ravens have been just destroying lately. Nonetheless, Mark Andrews is a very safe tight end one option this week. Dalton Kincaid is number two this week, and I've got him ahead of Sam Laporta. And honestly, this one can be interchangeable. I actually just really like Dalton Kincaid's upside right now. Not only do I love the matchup against Denver, but what we've seen from Kincaid over the past several weeks, he's almost had 20 targets in the last 2 weeks, and he's found the end zone as well. Kincaid's just on a very explosive offense, and really, there's not as many targets in Buffalo that are reliable like there is in Detroit. Detroit's got Amon-Ra St. Brown. They've got Sam Laporta. They're getting Jameson Williams more involved. They've got Josh Reynolds still involved. Buffalo, they've got Stephon Diggs, and weekly, sometimes Gabe Davis is involved, and sometimes he's not. Since Dawson Knox has been out, Dalton Kincaid's been a stud in fantasy football. I'm relying on him big time, and I am advising my audience to feel very good about playing Dalton Kincaid this week against Denver, and feel the same way about Sam Laporta. This is no slights to Sam Laporta. I have loved Sam Laporta. I've been someone who's been like, I don't really think you should sell Sam Laporta. I think if you've got him and Mark Andrews on the same team, I'd rather sell Mark Andrews for a higher profit, because Sam Laporta's basically almost been as good as Mark Andrews. No slight at all to Sam Laporta. I just think Kincaid's upside is higher, but the upside with Laporta this week against the Chargers is still very, very high. Number 4, Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints taking on the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota this week. I've said this one over the past several weeks, and what I've said about Taysom Hill specifically is let's just take a minute to appreciate the fact that he is in tight end slots in most fantasy football platforms this year. Because year to year, he could be in the quarterback position. It's great to have Taysom Hill as a tight end option. It really is. Because you could see he's averaging 9 fantasy points per game. Well, the past 5 weeks specifically, he's been given 9.5 opportunities per game. And that means between targets and rushes. And not to mention the fact that he just threw a touchdown pass last week. It's like, this guy is like the ultimate jack of all trades in all of football. That's what this guy is. And he's in his 30s now. It's actually incredible what he's doing. But taking on the Minnesota Vikings defense this week, their weakness is in the secondary. I think Taysom Hill is going to be just as involved because he's been more involved every single week for the past 5 weeks. I think it just continues in week 10. George Kittle at number 5 here, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And George Kittle, the simple reason that he's above the next guy that we will discuss is because the ceiling is so much, in my opinion, it's higher with George Kittle. Because George Kittle, while Brock Purdy's not been playing great, we can't just forget and throw out the history of what he's done, dating back to last year and also earlier portions this year. Brock Purdy's been a good player. And he's been finding George Kittle more over the past several weeks. And of course, we all know that George Kittle can go off for a 30-point game. He did it a couple weeks ago. George Kittle is always capable of doing that. And I've got news. This is a kitchen sink type of game for San Francisco. They're on a 3-game losing skid. They do not want to lose again. And they know they're taking on a tough opponent. They need to get the ball in their playmakers' hands, period, end of story. They're throwing the kitchen sink at Jacksonville this week. And that's exactly why I've got him ahead of TJ Hawkinson at number 6. I love TJ Hawkinson. You can see the numbers on the screen. They're better than George Kittle's. Season long, he's been the better option. The problem, and really, I think that what I'm going to hear, and I'm curious to hear what y'all's thoughts are on TJ Hawkinson this week, because let me tell you why he's behind Kittle. The reason why is because TJ Hawkinson, coming off of last week, obviously the target share was still there. I'm not doubting the target share being there. And honestly, I really like Josh Dobbs. He was a former Pittsburgh Steeler, and I've been watching the Steelers since I can remember watching football. And Josh Dobbs was always regarded as a very good quarterback, highly intelligent guy. And obviously his intelligence showed coming in the same week and beating the Atlanta Falcons. The difference here this week is that was the Atlanta Falcons defense, which is not good. And they're taking on the New Orleans Saints defense this week. That's a different story here. They're going to struggle more because New Orleans defense is going to put up a much better fight. And that in turn lowers his ceiling below George Kittle's. That's the reason I have him there. Target share is still going to be great. I've got no concerns with target share. I have concerns with upside this week against the New Orleans Saints because I think it's going to be a rough wake-up call for them after that kind of, hero story last week, which was great. Nobody's discounting it. I really like Josh Dobbs. I just don't see the upside this week against New Orleans. Dalton Schultz of the Houston Texans, baby. What a development he has been over the past several weeks. After a slow start, he's been great, and he's taken on the Cincinnati Bengals in what is surely to be a competitive, maybe not a competitive matchup, but Houston's going to have to score points to keep up with this team because, number one, Houston's defense, not as good as I thought. Not as good as I had been saying for the past several weeks. That's just a reality. I was wrong on that one. No doubt about it. But the other problem here with Houston is that they don't have a run game. There's no run game for Houston. So they have to throw. CJ Stroud is having to throw, 40 times a game because they've got no run game. Devin Singletary's not getting it done without Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce obviously not getting it done anyways. So they've got no reliable run game, which puts Dalton Schultz in a very opportunistic position every single week because they're gonna have to score points to keep up with the Bengals this week. And Dalton Schultz, the way he's been playing lately, lights out. Been in the end zone quite a lot over the past month. I really like Dalton Schultz right now in this matchup against Cincinnati. Evan Ingram for the Jacksonville Jaguars in that matchup versus San Francisco. Now listen, Evan Ingram, when you look at it from just a volume perspective, this guy he's always going to be in the top 10. I can't envision a week where he's not in the top 10. The problem is that volume doesn't match the production. You're getting almost 8 targets per game. You should be getting more fantasy points than that. And the problem is he hasn't found the end zone yet, which is ridiculous. That's outrageous. Everybody else on this list has found the end zone at least once, with the exception of Evan Ingram. That's crazy, man. So Evan Ingram, with that knowledge, I also do always say with Evan Ingram, there's a chance every single week that he's going to get in the end zone. I can't imagine he's going to go this year scoreless, but just looking at the facts right now, I can't have him above Dalton Schultz, who's been in the end zone like crazy lately. And I think Evan Ingram's always going to be a reliable option because of volume. But this is the type of week here against the 49ers off a bye week. Who knows if he's going to get in the end zone this week? I would actually say that maybe it's not as likely this week. Jake Ferguson of the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Giants this week. Jake Ferguson, really over the past several weeks has been just getting better and better. Jake Ferguson at a tight end position, which is very inconsistent. We've seen more consistent production out of him the past several weeks. I really like Jake Ferguson this week because they're taking on the Giants. That's a great matchup if I've ever seen one. But again, just remember this. Tight end position is so unreliable that if they score 35 points and they win 35-3, I wouldn't be surprised if Jake Ferguson ends up with 1 catch for 9 yards or 2 catches for, 14 yards. for the simple reality that they may just not need him, and then they won't throw the ball in the second half. I think it's a possibility, but I also do think it's a great possibility that he gets in the end zone, and he is one of the touchdowns scored early. So we'll have to see, but I like Jake Ferguson this week. Cole Kmet taking on the Carolina Panthers tonight. I think Cole Kmet has been it's such a hard evaluation every week because for the past several weeks, I've been saying without Justin Fields, there's no upside. And really, I was proven right up until last week where he found the end zone twice. So Cole Kmet, very high upside player. Just a guy that his workload is very inconsistent. And with Tyson Bagent, again, I'm still untrustworthy of the situation while acknowledging the matchup is great. And obviously, he's got big boom potential. So if you're looking for a big tight end play, Cole Kmet's never a bad option, especially against the Panthers. Njoku at number 11. David Njoku taking on the Baltimore Ravens. The divisional matchup, it's always dicey. And David Njoku's production has been very, very dicey. Very hard to follow David Njoku on a week-to-week basis. Now, the past 2 weeks, they've been good for David Njoku. And he's been bouncing around with quarterbacks. He's just a more unstable option. One that has high upside, much like number 12, Kyle Pitts, but they're both very unstable options. Both high upside. When you stack them up, their numbers are very, very similar. They're both efficient players. The problem is they're just not getting consistent workloads. That's the ultimate problem here, but they're both high upside guys. Njoku, tougher matchup versus Baltimore. Atlanta taking on the Arizona Cardinals. Matchup is there for Pitts, but both of these guys right here, very unstable workloads, which makes me a little uneasy telling my audience this is a good move. But nonetheless, they both belong inside the top 12. And as I do every single week in my rankings videos, I give you my favorite underdog tight end option of the week this week. And I actually feel pretty good about this one. And I was trying to put him inside my top 12. I got Trey McBride this week of the Arizona Cardinals taking on the Atlanta Falcons. So Trey McBride, obviously a couple weeks ago, had a massive game in fantasy football. And after that week, I got tons of comments and questions asking, can I play Trey McBride over, David Njoku or someone like Dalton Schultz? And I said, no, don't do that because their quarterback is just still not providing upside. Well, now we've got Kyler back. That raises his ceiling against a bad defense. I like the upside this week for Trey McBride, and I'm excited to see what he could do with Kyler Murray. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below and what questions you need answered for Week 10 Fantasy Football. And if you want to see the top 12 kicker rankings for Week 10 Fantasy Football, click on this video right here.